a lot of experience that we need to know about, and we need to share with him some of our experience, because that's one of the things that's pretty much missing, that we don't have a real formal way of exchanging our experiences, so that many of us don't know what's happening on the continent, and brothers on the continent have a distorted view of what's happening here in the United States until they come here, and then the reality kind of hits them. Now, I'm going to butcher this name. I want to inform you of that right away. I'm going to do the best I can, and then I'm going to have him break it down for me. Kamuyayo?
Inkamhayo.
Inkamhayo?
Yes.
Kihura? Inkuba? Wamchumka? Wachumika.
Yes.
Okay, that's the last time I'm going to say that. In Cuba, can I call you in Cuba?
In Cuba, yeah, you can call me in Cuba.
I can work with that.
Cuba
Okay.
means lightning.
What does it mean?
Lightning.
Lightning?
Yeah. Kiurankova means, one who deploys thunder.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
What about the last name?
Wachumika means one who sets fire to things.
Okay.
And Kamhayo means one who is given to community to serve.
Okay. We're going to get back to that.
Yeah.
But you're with the Pan-African Center for Strategic and International Studies.
Yes, I am with the Pan-African Center for Strategic and International Studies, and basically what it does is to try to get the continent Pan-African, and by that I mean a quality of thought and practice that will be rooted in the best image and interest of African people, which is something very absent, particularly in cities.
Okay, let's go back to your name again. About the lightning.
Yes.
Do you create that lightning and
Actually, it happened. It's a name that I got, but I couldn't use until I was a certain age, and it has something to do with how I was born. My mother was coming from collecting firewood when she was pregnant with me, and it started raining very heavy. So she took shelter in a cave, and she gave birth to me and passed out. And there was a party that was sent out, and they looked for her for 3 days, and they couldn't find her.
Really?
Yeah. But when they found her, I was just seated there, just stroking. So they called me Kiora, because I was born, during thunder and lightning. That I would, that I was delivered, during thunder and lightning. When I was young, the name was too big for me. But later on, I started to measure up to it. I thought, how is that for the story?
So I would say that Wachumika is trickster then.
Wachumika is a clan name, and it means one who sets fire to things. Really, it's not an arsonist. It's one who puts who puts a spirit, like a spirit of fire into something to energize it, and to uplift it, to take it to a different level.
To ignite the energy and
Yes,
get it moving. You're with Uganda Radio. You do radio in Uganda, not Uganda Radio.
I have two radio stations, that I set up. The most famous is called Great African Radio, and that I set it up in 1999. And basically, when I came to Uganda, I used to live in England, where I did a lot of things, particularly in the black community. I used to head one of the largest black organizations in England, which was called Action on Earth. And through Action on Earth, I organized different Pan-African conferences and did a lot of other work. But I moved to Uganda. I was in England for over 16 years. And then I reached a stage where in England you just worked to be reviewed in the newspapers, and you do like a film, and people would come and say, "Oh, this is really wonderful. We look forward to you carrying this this genre or this exploration to greater heights." And then you kept thinking, next week, next month, I'm going to come out. I'm going to show you what I can do. But that didn't translate to any, significant work on the ground in Africa. It helped, uplift the British people, but it didn't help to uplift my people. So in 1999, I went back and I set up a radio station. It's a long story of how I came onto the way of the radio station, which I won't tell you that, but basically, radio in Africa now, as it stands, is really imitator stations, where everybody tries to imitate, to speak like an American or a British, and to talk about trivia, like Miss Uganda, some thin, tall woman barely out of her nappies with legs not bigger than drumsticks, being pelleted as Miss Uganda, can't grow any potatoes, has no knowledge of heating, has no skill, to give either the community or, to take to, the modern world. And they put her there, and that's all they talk about, and the party that was, last night, and how so-and-so is wearing some cool clothes. And then the music they play, is from, Britain, America. I found people that I had never heard, like Celine Dion. I had never heard of Celine Dion. So what I did was to set up a station that would play traditional music, that would have people who have not been formally trained in radio, trained in radio so that they could, talk about programs and things that matter to them, and also to focus the community, to focus on things that Africa needs, to grow food and store grain. That is what made Africa great in ancient time. To improve their living condition in terms of how of health and general cleanliness around your home, things that used to matter to African people. You remember in Africa, for example, you used to build your toilet so far away from the main house because the idea of really doing your number one or defecating where you live is bizarre. So yet when you go to the city, you find like one toilet for so many people, and that's what they use, and it doesn't work. The water doesn't run, so they have even got to carry water and to pour. So my job was to resurrect the sleeping giant, because that's what Africa is. It's a nation that has been diverted from the forward flow of high technical civilization, of a high technical past, is that we moving away from things that made us strong, and going into things that really we're not so well versed in, and that would not lead us anywhere. So my job was to introduce the concept of this African, and to tell the African story from creation to where we were then, so that people would know, oh, we did this in the past. We used to grow food. Everybody came to Africa looking for food. The Hebrews came to Africa looking for food. The Vandals came to Africa looking for food. The Greeks were so amazed by how much food there were that they even transferred their capital from Greece onto Africa. So how does Africa move from being this nation that feeds everybody to become a net importer of food? How does Africa give up grain like millet and sorghum that they have grown for thousands of years, to rice that comes from Canada and Vietnam? So those are the main issues that really matter to African people, and the African people know this. It's just the politician and the outside world tries to project a different image of what Africa's needs are.
Mm-hmm. Although they project that different image, they still know what made Africa strong, because they're constantly trying to get control of those resources that made Africa strong.
Yes, sir. Not only are they trying to get control of those resources, they are also trying to get those traditions that made Africans strong. I give you an example. Take when I was growing up, they used to laugh at school if you said that your father's house was grass-thatched, that it was covered with grass. It had a thatch. Now, when you travel and you go to five-star hotels, they're all covered with thatch. As soon as we abandoned the thatch, they picked it up. You remember the time when they used to say, African people are primitive because they didn't wear any clothes? I mean, now look, when it is summer, nobody has clothes. So if you really want somebody to give up the best thing that they have so that you can take it, you first denigrate it. You show them that it's not important.
Right.
You show them that it doesn't really matter, whether you have it or not. And then when they give it up, then you collect it, and then the people would start coming to you. A good example is the skills that African people have in maintaining a home. You'd find like a home is all rounded. It has its own high court system. Up to the grandfather who will become the head of the Supreme Court. It has its own sewage distribution system. It has its own water system, and it's not a sewage system where you get the sewage and pour it into the water, into the well. If you did that in traditional Africa, you'd be chased out of a village. It is a system where you know how much food that is going to keep your family going for 2 years, even if food production stops.